made my first $1 million, had $1 million cash at 26 years old, and I still felt poor then.
You swapped a negative addiction for positive addiction with that?
100%. I don't do anything less than 110%. I'm all in, which I don't think there's anything wrong with.
I think it's a fucking good thing, but I think this is
Yeah.
the problem with the world. Everyone's like, oh, you fucking work too much, you're fucking obsessed.
Mind your fucking business. How about that?
Anyone who's really fucking good at anything has to be obsessed and super dedicated. So today is going to be an absolute blast. This is like Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year all come together. So today we've got a very special guest, Mr. Eric Spofford, all the way from Miami. So Eric's background, you went from drug addict, being arrested, I think, 10 years old, to then building drug rehab clinics, which you've then sold and exited. How much did you exit those for?
$115 million back in 2021.
Which gives some perspective of why we're having the conversation today and talking about business. Because,
no doubt.
You've been there and you've done that. Where do you think was a pivotal moment to you saw like an opportunity in terms of like building that business you built? Did you plan, like, did you have like a vision in your head when you saw it at the start, this is where it was going to go?
I had no idea in the beginning. But I think one thing that's important is I've always been a practitioner of deals, an entrepreneur from a very young age. I was the kid with the lemonade stand selling baseball cards, you know, which then, you know, given my background with addiction and crime prior to changing my life, turned into drug dealing and all of that stuff. And so then when I got sober and changed my life 17 years ago and I got involved in the recovery scene, it was only a natural kind of path that I was like, all right, now let me figure out how to monetize this. Let me figure out how to help people, and which I'm passionate about, and turn it into a business. And so I started my company in 2008. I was 23 years old. And it was a very small part-time thing. I was working a construction job, cutting down trees for a living, and started a men's sober house. And so a place where people recovering from addiction would come and live, and they paid me by the week. I lived there for the first 2 years, and that was the birth of the business. Did I understand where it would end up or have this master plan? No, not even remotely close. I figured that out along the way. There's several like key points in that thing where my kind of eyes opened up and I was like, oh, okay, I should do that. And then I went and built it. And then once I got there, I was like, oh, I should do that. And then the goal just became this monstrous thing in my head. About 2014, I was like, I want to build the largest continuum of care addiction treatment business that exists in the New England states, and so the Northeast region of America. And people thought every point in this, people thought I was insane. They thought I was totally just a lunatic, right? They're like, what are you talking about? And then I did it. I just doubled down, and you know, it was sleepless nights. It was worrying about how to make payroll. It was painting the walls myself. It was everything, but we built it. And by 2016, we were the largest collection of treatment facilities in that area.
Do you think
became a big business?
Yeah, clearly. Do you think having a business plan is a mistake people try and make at the beginning? They try and plan things out maybe too methodically, whereas like you said, and what I've done, everything just sort of evolved. It's gone along. I've seen like an opportunity, I've just done it.
You know, I don't know if having a business plan is a mistake. I think having a general plan is pretty good, right? I look at my businesses and my initiatives now. I have business plans I'm executing against. I know where I'm going within a general reason. I think that people get stuck in that part of the process and they overplan and they just need to pivot into execution and action. Like, you know what I mean? Like 100%. You could sit there and have, you know, whiteboard sessions and business plans and presentations and PowerPoints and talk about it and, you know, socialize the idea with your community and do all this stuff. At a certain point, you have to go to fucking work. Like, just get up off your ass and move. And I think a lot of people just don't really understand that concept, and that's why they never really gain full traction. Like, when I look at that, the one characteristic that I think is incredibly important if you're going to have fast-paced growth in business is you have to be fearless. You have to look at it. There's never going to be a perfect scenario. It's never going to be perfect circumstances. You have to look at it and go and just trust on yourself. Like, I'll figure it out. Are there going to be problems? Absolutely. I'll figure it out when I get there. Full send. Let's go. And so that's what it was. It was all gas. It was. You know, I talk about in my content all the time how hard entrepreneurship really is, because the growth of that business, I was constantly just getting my ass kicked and like figuring it out. Like, if you're not willing to get punched in the face repetitively, go home, sleep it off, wake up in the morning, throw a smile on your face and be excited to do it again, this game ain't for you.
One of the things I heard you say in a story the other day, and I fucking loved it, was business as a sport. What's your perspective on that?
I think that business is a competitive combat sport. I consider myself a business athlete, right? People are like, Eric, you made so much money. Why are you doing this again? Well, I don't need another Super Bowl ring, but I fucking want one. And I just love the process. I love the competition. I love the athleticism and I call it a combat sport because I just constantly draw these analogies to the fight game, right? I'm a big enthusiast of boxing, of MMA. I love the mindset. I love that it's a sport of solidarity, right? You have to do it yourself. No one gets in that ring with you. No one builds this business with you. You're surrounded by trainers and nutritionists and supportive people, but at the end of the day, motherfucker, it's on you. And it's competitive. Like you getting up at 4 a.m, training. Like, if you're going to have a champion mindset in the fight game, you have to outwork everybody. In my arena, my business, believe it or not, addiction treatment, was highly competitive. It's not like I was in a blue ocean. I was out there competing with a lot of other people. And so you have to outperform everybody. And so it really is. It's just a sport. You have to train. And people think it's like a hobby or an avocation or 40 or 50 hours a week. Like, the ones that are going to make it, like, arguably, in the world of business, having a 9-figure exit is essentially winning a world championship. There's very few of us. It's a small club. And so I'm proud to have that, not because of I made all this money. I honestly don't really even care about the money anymore. I love the achievement. I love the trophy. And I love the game, and I love the process. And so for me, it's just, it's for a love of the game. If it was about the results, I could go home and never do another fucking thing again. I could have done that 2 years ago. But I'm 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, because it's for a love of the game.
It's about the process, not the prize.
100%. 100%. You have to love it. Excuse me. You have to love it.
Do you think that entrepreneurship gets overly glamorized in some respects, and that's why some people try and get into it and they're like, fuck me, this is much harder than I thought, and then just fold?
I just made a post about that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that entrepreneurship is glamorized. I think that people generally talk about it like it's easy. And it's not. One of the things that's overlooked is the majority, it's like 90-something% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. Like, this is hard. It's not easy. The winning is sweet. The winning, the results, the path to being able to ring that bell when you get there, it's unbelievable. There's nothing else like it. But if you start at the same time with a bunch of entrepreneurs, in 5 years, there's only going to be a very few of you still around and successful that have made it, because it's difficult. It's just very challenging.
That's a really good question. So let's say you've got 100 entrepreneurs, and in 5 years' time, there's only 3 standing. What are the common characteristics and traits you see in those 3 people who are still crushing it in 5 years' time?
Resilience. Resilience is absolutely key for being in business, because you're just going to get your ass kicked every single day. And like I said, you have to be able to wake up, put a smile on your face, and do it again. Humility. A lot of people get crushed in business because of their own ego. They come in, and I could see them. I'll sit in a room and go, this guy he's fucked, because he's the smartest guy in the room. I can tell the entrepreneurs, I believe that I can tell the entrepreneurs that are actually going to succeed and make it, because they're sitting there, and you put them in any room and they're quiet and they ask the most questions. And that takes humility, right? Where you see other people come in and they have these large egos, and they're more concerned with impressing the room and showing off what they already know. Well, how much value did you derive from getting in this room? None. What? Oh, you impressed other entrepreneurs? No one cares, right? And so having the humility, which I think humility is directly attached to something else that I preach about, which is constantly being a student of the game. Like, if you're not ready to learning information and action and execution to break through to that next level, because if you're not growing, you're dying, then you're going to get stuck and you're going to get eliminated. And so just constantly being obsessively learning. And that's podcasts like this, that's YouTube videos, that's internet research, that's books, that's courses, that's seminars, that's mentorship, that's coaching. One of the things that people don't see behind the curtain of what made me, I'm a 15-year-old high school dropout. I don't have a GED. I've never been back since I was 15 years old. I've never been back in like a academic classroom. I'm one of the most educated people I know. I have spent millions and millions. Harvard grads pull up. I'm like, brother, I've spent so much more on my education than you ever did. You have no idea. Like advisors, mentors, coaches, masterminds, just all of that stuff. That's the stuff that's going to continue to drag you up and bring you to the next level.
I agree 100%. One of my favorite sayings is genius doesn't have great answers. He asks great questions.
Oh, I love that.
Because it's like,
I love that.
I've always been like the quiet and like annoying person who just fucking hammers people with questions because I just want to like today, I want to extract information of like the wealth of experience you
100%.
have. What you mentioned, learning is obviously one of the core things in those like people being successful. What do you do in terms of learning now, or what you may be doing in terms of like building the mammoth business you had previously?
I'm doing the same thing I've always done. I'm constantly in research mode, and I'm pretty flexible in what that looks like. Currently, I have mentors. I have people in different areas. Like I'll identify the areas that I'm weak in, or I need to grow in, or provide a massive opportunity for me, and I will seek out the best that I can find. And I'll do whatever I can to establish a relationship, if that's paying them or, doing something for them or just being there, whatever. And then I'll ask a million questions. I don't think there's I think there's 1,000 ways to learn. I think the best way to learn in this game is to find people with lived experience and just suck it out of them. Just get it by osmosis of asking questions and being around them. I think that's the number one thing that's really influenced me and my aptitude for growth and learning. Outside of that, I'm constantly reading. I read a lot of books. I'm here in Dubai on vacation for a week. I brought 2 books with me. I will read both books this week while I'm here.
What are the books you're reading?
I'm going back through a business book. I've read it like 4 times, called Traction.
Yeah, it's amazing.
EOS.
Gino Wickman, right?
Gino Wickman. And then I read my friend Alex Hormozy, Alex. Yeah. I read his first book, which was $100 Million Offers, and I've been sitting on the second book, $100 Million Leads. Yeah. And everyone loves it. And so I brought both of those. The reason Traction, EOS, the systems of scale and structure for a business, implementing that. I have a startup company that turns 1 year old tomorrow, actually. And it's a startup. And so I have to go, I had like EOS type systems in my former business. That's, org chart, chain of command, meeting cadence, KPIs, goals, plan. I had all that stuff. You have to have a business that's doing 50 plus million a year with 325 employees, or it's complete chaos, which it was chaos. Then we implemented those things and then it blew up in scale. And so now I'm refreshing myself, going back through this book to bring it to the top of mind. And now when I get back to America, just an example of like execution, right? I'm here, I'm doing this with you. I had a meetup this morning. I'll be networking with entrepreneurs tonight. Like it just never stops. I get back to America. I have 5 days to catch up with my businesses and my children. And then I'm up in the great state of Ohio, buried in snow in the cold in January, boots on the ground, operating one of my companies. And I'll be up there for 4 days, implementing what I'm reading today, right? Like I'm literally going there because it's time to put it's time to put this structure in that business.
Would you say one of the strategies you do, and I hear a lot of people like Alex Hormozy who talks about this a lot in terms of like only rereading a certain books rather than going to go find another book. Is that something you almost do? Depending on what problem you're trying to solve.
Yes, I do both.
Yeah.
I read a lot of new books. I love interesting perspectives. I am, flexible enough to read books that I don't entirely agree with. I'll take what I've gained gold nuggets from books that maybe I disagreed with half of it or just didn't think it applied to me or whatever. And so I'm constantly reading new material, but there is a handful of books that I love. Traction's one of them. I really love that EOS system. I think it's unbelievable to implement into businesses that are at a critical stage of scale and growth. When in 2000, I'll give you an example of that and why I believe in this so much. If you go back in time to 2017, 2018, my business is doing 20-something million a year. I have a nice company. I am making plenty of money, right? It's thrown off, God, I don't know, back then probably $4 or $5 million a year, which is a nice salary, right? You're making $4 or $5 million a year. You're eating whatever steak you want, doing whatever you want with $4 or $5 million a year. But I have 17, 18, 19 direct reports. The entire business rolls to me. If I get hit by a bus on a Monday morning, the business is dead by Tuesday. They don't know what to do. Nothing is written down. There's no process, right? Which is like documented how we do something and training people so that, it exists with or without other human beings. There's no succession plan for anyone. And it's it's a dictatorship. And for 16 hours a day, I'm calling shots. And my ego is out of control because nobody can do this better than I can, right? I got a mentor. My mentor had built a staffing company, which he then sold for more than $300 million. He had an amazing liquidity event. Since that time in 2017, 18, when I worked with him, now here we are almost in 2024. He's grown his capital through a family office, and now he's crossed over the line to become a billionaire. He's now a billionaire. He wasn't at the time, but now he is. And he took me under the hood of like, Eric, you can't, challenged me, right? He challenged me in all of this stuff. I didn't understand that, like, I just hadn't connected the dots that businesses could run without me. And so he made me read the book and started helping me implement, all of these things. From 2018, 19 was really the time of execution of the information, execution and implementation. By 2020, 2021, I went from $25 million in top line revenue to 55, like that.
And do you put that all down to just implementing that?
Yeah, because we scaled and grew and found efficiencies and processes. And not only did the revenue just have hockey stick growth, but what also happened was because when I was doing $25 million a year, making 4 or 5, I had plenty of money. I had financial freedom. I could buy whatever I wanted. There wasn't a car that I didn't buy if I wanted it. There wasn't a steak, a restaurant that I couldn't go to. I had no freedom of time. I had no lifestyle. My youngest wasn't born yet. My oldest son was young, and it pained me that so frequently, like, he's like, Dad, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, hang on, son, hang on. Like, I'm like stuck, I'm glued, right? I'm a prisoner, I'm a slave. And at a certain point in that, I'm like, I have so much money and I love this business, but I hate this. Like, I have no life.
The point you got like golden handcuffs, right?
Yeah, I love that saying, golden handcuffs. And so through the next few years, it went from being nonstop, I could not show up for an hour, to things ran without me. For the last year that I owned the business, I stepped down as CEO, stepped to executive chairman, and the only involvement that I had was a once-a-month board meeting. Reviewed KPIs, reviewed progress, did all this stuff. And so it went from complete chaos to making more money than I've ever made and being totally uninvolved from the business, just an advisor to the CEO, and I would step in here and there and watch KPI dashboards and give advice when it came up and go to a board meeting once a month. And that was the power. And so when I say, like, I'm passionate about it and I'm reading the book again, it totally changed my life. And if that information I never received, how to bring a business to the next level. Like, you look at Apple, Apple's obviously Apple. Steve Jobs has been dead a long time. Your business is supposed to be a legacy. You're supposed to build something that outlives you. It's supposed to be something that you leave behind on this planet. If you take it all the way to the top level, like Apple is Steve Jobs' legacy, right? It's performing and still going despite, him having been gone for years. And so implementing all of that stuff into my business, it totally changed my business, transformed it. I never would have had a $115 million exit. And what I didn't understand is the buyer universe looks at these things. And here's another interesting perspective is that when you go to sell your business, one of the things, it's so counterintuitive to the hustler, CEO, grinder, owner, founder, entrepreneur mindset. I'm the guy, I do this, I, me, right? Buyers look at it, private equity, institutions, strategic businesses, the less this business needs you as the owner, the more it's worth. And so you'll actually increase the valuation through the multiple. The fact that my business didn't need me at all made it worth more. If it was totally dependent on me, two things would have happened. They would have paid me less for it, and I would have been tied to it. They would have made me roll over equity. I never would have been able to sell 100% of it. The only reason they'd let me sell 100% of it was because they believed that this business operates without me, which it did. And so it was all just very fascinating, information. It's like business at a black belt level, not a purple belt, not the blue belt, the black belt. And that's, the stuff that I love.
It's funny timing listening to this, because it's like the exact thing I probably needed to hear today. So I know what I'm reading this afternoon. In terms of like you and goal setting and stuff like that, do you set goals for like, obviously it's 2024 tomorrow. Do you set goals for like next year? Like how do you break that process down?
Yeah, I set goals. I create a vision. You can't hit a target you can't see. And so I have very specific goals and plans for the next, 12, 24, 36 months, high level, macro and micro for all of my businesses, all my initiatives. And then my process is this. I love to reverse engineer. And so what I mean by that is, okay, anyone with their business, you could say, what do you want it to be? Well, I want to do $30 million a year. I want to make $6 million. I want a 20% margin. And that's what I want it to be. Okay, what does the business look like in that state? How many sales do you need to have? How many employees do you need to have to support those sales and support the fulfillment of that service or product? Okay, great. Now we understand what the performance looks like, and we understand what the composition of that business looks like at that capture point of the vision. Now let's work our way backwards. What has to happen before you get there? What has to happen before you get there? What has to happen? And you work that process all the way to where you're at currently over a certain timeline, provided reasonable time, right? And what the power on that is, what it does is it totally defines the target in which you're going to hit in detail, granular level detail, but you also bring it all the way back to where you're at today. What does that do? It solves the biggest problem that most entrepreneurs have is, what do I do next? Okay, I'm going to execute, I'm going to take action, but what am I doing? Well, when I know where I'm going and I can paint the vision of where I'm going and then reconstruct the road from it to where I'm at today, I know what I'm doing tomorrow, and I know I'm totally in alignment with my goals and my vision. And so that's kind of an oversight of my process of how I build that out in my head.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. One
of the things, obviously very impressive with what you've done with the size of the business you had. You mentioned over 300 employees. What did your hiring process look like that? Because I imagine there was some like trials and tribulations with having that many people, and pain is knowledge really fast, right? You learn from mistakes. How did you learn to bring in the right type of people into the business?
Oh God, I think if you asked me what one of my largest pain points in business to date was, I would tell you hiring. These businesses are amazing things except for the employees sometimes, right? And so that was probably one of the hardest lessons learned, and honestly, I'm still getting better at it. And I'm still, and so I think entrepreneurs have a lot of very similar characteristics. One of them is having a big heart. And so one of the mistakes that I constantly made in hiring is I want to give somebody a chance. Mm. He could do it. I believe in him. In a common pattern, some of those worked out, but many of them did not. Many of them did not. And so when I look at it, it's like, God, I have to be honest with myself. I'm like, I wanted that person to be successful more than they even wanted to be successful themselves. I gave them an opportunity that was too big for them because I wanted them to be successful. And then I set them up to fail. And I have to own that. That's on me. And I had to swallow that. And so when I made the pivot from hiring people that I believed in, hiring people that I liked, hiring people that I wanted to give an opportunity to hiring people that had the track record, the results, and the resume, having already accomplished things that I'm trying to accomplish in my business, that changed everything. That was a part of that pivotal growth. One of the things that happened in those years where revenue scaled and I was able to back out of the business was I built a leadership team. And that changed everything for me. And the composition of that leadership team, every single one of those people that sat at the table, that headed up their departments, was unbelievably smarter than I was in their area. The chief of HR was way better at HR than I was. The head of sales, all of that. And so hiring for the people that already have the results was incremental. The other thing is the actual interviewing and hiring process itself. I think another kiss of death characteristic of entrepreneurs is we're easily excitable. And so I'll meet one person, have one meeting with them. I'm like, he's the guy. I love this guy. I love this guy. That's him. That's the person. And, that got me in trouble many, many times. And so what my process is now is no matter what, I have to fight this. That I still feel like that. That still happens to me. And I have to stick to the discipline of the process. 3 qualified candidates at a minimum of 4 meetings. And so we'll have with multiple people. And so we'll do, like a screening on Zoom, a second screening with my chief operating officer on Zoom, then me and my chief operating officer on Zoom, and then in person at a minimum. And we're going to do that with 3 candidates. And what we found is that through those multiple touch points with multiple people, it just exposes people. People, they might be able to come in and knock this one out of the park. And I can't tell you how many times I've started the process. I'm telling you, that's the one. And by the end of the 4th meeting, I'm like, I don't love that person anymore. And thank God we didn't hire them because I would have found these things out. But it's sticking to the discipline of that when I constantly don't want to. I constantly just want to rush the line and fill the spot. And so having the discipline to do it no matter what has helped.
Would you say, because your personality seems very similar to mine, sometimes I like to implement very quickly, so I tend to jump the gun.
Yeah.
And there's a book called Working Backwards. It was about Amazon and talks about that hiring process, how they gained 4,000 employees in a year, which is mental. But
That's
one
crazy.
of the big mistakes I made was I would interview someone and be like, this guy's fucking amazing. Tell everyone else he's amazing. They'd interview him. They'd already think he's amazing because I said he's amazing.
Because you influenced it.
So it's cognitive bias. So and then we made a royal mess with that. And you learn quickly from those mistakes. And in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. But I think a lot of people sometimes don't have the mileage to see that yet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, we could try to be the best that we can be at interviewing and hiring and sourcing the best candidates, but things aren't always going to go perfect. And so, we have a saying, it's not our saying, it's a saying that I love, though, that I speak frequently in the business, which is let's hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
And so if you have the stomach to be able to pivot quickly, it matters less.
Would you say you've ever had someone start badly who's finished well, if that makes sense?
Say that again?
Someone who's started badly, so they came to you, did a shit job at the beginning, and then they turned it around? Because from my experience, I've never seen that happen. If someone's bad at the gate, it doesn't work.
That's a fire fast situation. Yeah. But again, the easily excitable nature of the entrepreneur, I'm like,
give him a chance.
Give him a chance. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. And you just keep getting more and more pregnant with this person in your business.
Right?
And yeah. Exactly. And so you compromise your core principles and your core values of excellence and greatness. And that's one of the things that I've had in, for consideration as I move into 2024. It's where are the areas that I've compromised excellence in my organizations? Where have I settled for less, right? And every time I've ever settled for less than excellence, I've regretted it at some point. And so I'm making that pivot to the discipline.
Would you, because I'm thinking about my own businesses, would you say deep down as entrepreneurs, we all know where the skeletons are in the closet, the things we've just been it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. Those are probably things that are probably holding most businesses back.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
One thing that I think is a huge thing is obviously people run businesses, and the more successful you are as a person and your own mindset and the way you run your day is going to define your outcomes. How do you like run your own day in terms of your routine? Like, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? Do you get up like crazy early, like Wes does? Like, what's the fucking 2:33 a.m. bullshit?
Yeah. I bust Wes's balls all the time. I'm like, Wes, I'm too rich to be waking up that early. Like, what are you talking about? I wake up at 6:37,
okay.
and which is a normal time to wake up. I get up, and I will tell you the first thing that I do. You know, I love people that are like, I get up, I don't look at my phone, I exercise for 2 hours, I get up at 4 a.m, I read 3 pages out of a book, I meditate, I do all these things. That is not what I do. I wake up, I grab my cell phone, and I walk to the bathroom to take a piss. And while I'm pissing, I'm looking at all the messages that I like. It's 0 to 110 miles an hour the second that I open my eyes. And I'm setting the day up. I'm responding to anything that I missed overnight. I'm on defense to incoming stuff, and I'm also pushing forward on offense, on setting the day up, talking to my leaders, like checking in, and like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this, pop, pop, pop. And that process happens literally. I'm working while I'm getting ready. I'm working while I'm having breakfast. And like, I have this whole morning thing that I do that's just kind of this scrambled mess, but I love it. And it works for me. And it's worked for me forever. This has always been, there's been no structure. It's just been total chaos all at one time. And I typically get to this point where I have the day set up, things are in momentum. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I could take a little bit of time. And so one of the things that we do is we work out kind of like mid-morning. And so like, I'll have several hours of work, have everything moving in the right direction, and then I'll break and I'll go to the gym. And there's a group of us entrepreneurs, some of my team, we go work out typically around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I come back, and the rest of my day is calendared. And so it's in 15-minute increments. Like, I know where I'm at, what I'm doing. The morning is chaos. But once I come back from that workout, rinse off and put some clothes on, the rest of the day into nighttime is totally organized, scheduled, and efficient. If that makes sense.
Ironically, mine's exactly the same. And I go to the gym at the same time, which is why I've seen the gym a couple times this week. So it's, I think some people like the mental masturbation of doing all this stupid shit in the morning. It doesn't really make any fucking difference rather than just doing the thing. So you spoke about earlier, people like business plans who like to talk about doing it.
I think it's listen, if you want to get up and do your meditation, your ice bath, your this, your that, like, if that makes you happy, by all means, please do your full process. Wake up at 4 a.m, do all the, the incremental things. But at some point, you have to go to fucking work. Like, that's what moves the needle, is execution. And so I don't know that your ice bath makes you more effective than my 16 hours of pressure that I'm going to put on this thing all day. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going from, I literally, by 6:37, my eyes are open, and I'm on it nonstop. That does not, I go to bed probably 11:30, right? And so for whatever that is, it's just nonstop, right? Like, the last thing that I do before I go to bed is work. I'm sending messages. I'm on it. I'm always like winding down at night and having these ideas come to me and things. And so I'm smashing emails and doing this and doing that. And then I take melatonin at night. I've done it for years. And I'll take melatonin, put my phone on Do Not Disturb, set it down, lay down, pass out, force myself to sleep. I don't even like to sleep. I feel like it's a waste of time, but I have to do it. And then wake up, and I'm right back at them. And so, like, you can do all that other shit, but, like, I'm going to outwork you. Like, I'm going to fucking bury you. Like, so I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. But this is what's worked for me. I have the track record and the results to support that, like, this works. Like, you can't argue with me about it, I agree
100%. And at some point, it's a volume game. And when you've got volume and leverage of you having a big team, it's like you're going to win. And that's what most people just don't understand that.
Yep. 100%.
It's really simple.
Yeah. It's just work. You know what I mean? People overlook, like, it's just about work. Like, there's so much glamour. We were talking about this earlier about how they glamorize entrepreneurship and all these things that come with it. And, like, now they're fasting and ice bathing and, and all this stuff. Like, what worked for me was just getting up and just throwing punches all day long and not stopping, nights, weekends, holidays, all of it.
It's take a few big swings and you hit a few home runs, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's, I think that's the secret. You mentioned earlier, obviously, you're a father. How did that change your life in terms of like perspective and maybe even in terms of business?
My dad?
Yeah.
My dad owned a small tree removal and excavation company, and so we cut trees down in people's yards, made their yards bigger. We would clear land and put in foundations to build homes and do the site work for that stuff. And so he was a small business owner. So I learned the core principles of structuring a deal, of entrepreneurship, of business, of sales. Like when my childhood, I used to hate it, but I'm so grateful for it now, was every single evening my dad would need to do estimates. And this is a long time ago, obviously, but he would come home from working all day long. He would press play on the answering machine.
Yeah. Voicemail.
This is when I was a little kid. And he would listen to all of them. He would take notes. He would call people back, and he would set appointments to go do estimates. And so I would ride along in the front seat with them at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old as he drove up to people's homes, met them, bid the work, sold them. And it taught me the core principles. When I started building my own business, though, I realized that in order for me to ever get further than my father took it, my dad was always the guy in the machine. He was the guy running the chainsaw. He was like a shopkeeper. Like he ran a business, but he honestly owned a job. He had to go to work every day. If he didn't show up for a day's work, nothing happened because he was the business. And so he taught me so much, but took me so far that at a certain point, I had to find mentorship of people that had businesses that had grown incrementally larger than the one that he had, and take it to the next level that way. But the early childhood education that my father gave me was invaluable. Like it was priceless.
You never really realized at the time, but things of your childhood, if it hadn't happened, wouldn't make you who you are.
100%. Yeah. My father didn't give me anything. Like, I remember I was 6 years old and I wanted a pet snake, like a little ball python, the stupid little snakes. And there was one at the pet store, and he had me stacking firewood. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I had to work all summer long to make $80. The pet store had this special for like a glass tank and a heater and the snake. It was like $80. And like at that young of age, I was working to get what I wanted. And I hated it. Like I saw the kids in the neighborhood, they wanted a snake, and their dad would come back, in their white collared shirt, driving their BMW from their corporate job. And sure, Johnny, here's the money. And the kid would just have a freaking snake. And I'm over here like lugging logs around at 7 years old, like stacking these things, sweating, dying. Like, God, this sucks. I just want the snake, But I look back and I'm like, it made me hungry. It made me, still to this day, like I have more than I ever thought I would by multiples, and anyone else ever thought I would, for sure. And one of the things the characteristics that I tie directly to that piece of my childhood that I'm so grateful for is I wake up every morning, despite how much I have in the bank or how many assets I have under management, hungry as fuck. I feel hungry and I feel poor and I feel broke and I have to get at it. And I don't think $1 billion changes that in me. I think that's just an emotional foundation for my childhood that was instilled in me, and that I'll probably grind and work until the day I'm dead. And that's so different than other people, because sometimes a little bit of success ruins people. They have a little bit of win, they have a little bit of money. Like I'm 38, I'll be 39 years old in a couple months, March 1st. And I made my first $1 million, had $1 million cash at 26 years old. Like, and I still felt poor then. And so,
would you say you swapped a negative addiction for a positive addiction with that?
100%. I don't do anything less than 110%. I'm all in. And so, yes, which I don't think there's anything wrong with.
I think it's a fucking good thing. But I think this is the problem with the world. Everyone's like, oh, you fucking work too much. You're fucking obsessed. You put in too much
mind your fucking
into
business. How about that?
It was like, if anyone who's really fucking good at anything has to be obsessed and super dedicated.
It has to be an obsession. It has to be super dedicated. And I don't want to do anything else. What they don't understand in those very ignorant statements is where they're coming from is you think working is a bad thing because you suffer while you're doing it. You don't enjoy what you're doing because you settled for less. I am happiest in my element. I love doing what I'm doing. And so why would I want to do anything else? Like going to sit on a beach somewhere, or I'm in Dubai, I'm here with you. Hey, we saw each other at the gym this morning. I hosted a meetup. Like I have not stopped working. I'm not going to, because I love it. Why would I want to do anything else? Why would I want to do anything I don't love? I don't love sitting around and not being productive. I love having a mission and getting it done and achieving accomplishment. That's what brings me happiness. And so who the fuck are you to tell me not to do that? You know?
I'll give you an example. Even my girlfriend said to me on Christmas Day at like 8 a.m. It's like, you can go do some work for an hour or something if you want, because she knows that's like what I actually want to do and like fulfills me. So I did. But like, that's the reality of what gives me like passion and pleasure and excites me. It's like building shit and doing stuff. Yeah. Which I think people think is fucking weird. But that's what I like.
Those people aren't our people. I don't think it's weird. What I did on Christmas Eve and Christmas was, you know, I knew that the silence, you know, it's at a certain point, like you have to leave your team alone, right? Like they have families, they have children, they
can't be spamming them. And,
like I'm going to, all right, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I got to leave these people alone. God, this is painful. And so I actually ran promotional sales on my Instagram and started events. And I don't remember how much it did, but I think I got like over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I sold like $100,000 in tickets to events. But it kept me active. I was like engaging with people. It wasn't even about the $100,000. I couldn't care less. It was about like I was selling, I was hunting, you know what I mean? And so it was fun, and it made the time pass a little better.
Do you find Christmas and the holidays with your entrepreneurial drive sometimes a bit of a difficult thing in terms of like,
it's painful.
I find it difficult because it feels like the world is trying to slow me down, but I'm trying to accelerate and want to go faster.
It's like, you know, the holidays are very painful. The you know, Sunday evenings, right? Like you got to give these people a little time to relax, you know, your team and all of that. And so like Sundays are typically like, I'm just waiting for Monday morning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this sucks. Like it's the hard, people love Sundays and, you know, and not me. It's the quiet times are very difficult for me to get through. And so I try to build things around those and make production, you know, make the time useful.
One of the things you clearly have, Eric, is a credible network. How have you built that, and has had maybe moving to Miami helped that?
Moving to Miami helped. One of the things I coach people on all the time is getting in the room. Like you have to show up. People, it's crazy where people are like, Eric, you have an amazing network. How do I do that? And I'm like, you don't leave your fucking house. You're not going to meet people on your couch. And so you have to get out and move around, shake hands, look people in the whites of their eyes. I'm Eric Spofford. It's nice to meet you. Follow-up game, you know. And then it's putting yourself in the right situations to be able to shake the hands and make the introductions. But then it's how you approach those relationships. One of the things that I see that people do that's an absolute kiss of death in networking is they have what I call a wimp mindset, which means what's in it for me. They approach like, I'll meet anyone. Like, I'm very accessible. I just had a meetup with a bunch of people from the internet that I don't know. It's how you approach people. If you approach with, Eric, do you know what you could do for me? Yeah, I'm aware. Like, yes, I do. But it's transactional, not relational. And so approaching people to be their friend and approaching them with authenticity. And when I meet someone, I'm like, what can I do for you? How can I help this person? How can I build value? For two reasons. One, it genuinely brings me a lot of joy to be able to like bring value to other people. And two, I know that the fastest path to secure a very deep and authentic relationship with you is if I can help you. If there's someone you need to meet, if there's information I have that you need, if there's an introduction I can make, if there's a resource that I have that you could benefit from, if I can give you some of my time and my expertise of where I've been that might be able to help you in your journey. It's you know, it's all about a balance sheet. Now I've put a credit on the balance sheet of our relationship, and it just cements things further, you know? And so it's really getting in the room, networking with people, and then also how you approach those relationships is huge. And with that strategy, I've developed an unbelievable network, which is, people think that like my net worth or all of that is the most valuable thing that I have. It's not. It's my Rolodex. Like I can solve any problem by picking up my cell phone, you know? And so it's worked for me.
And that's when you put yourself in a position where you can't fail. Because if you lost everything tomorrow, it's like you already have the skills and then you got the fucking contacts. Like
100%.
Within a month, you'd be back fucking rolling.
Yep.
In terms of you coming to Dubai, has this broken any limiting beliefs or changed your perspective or anything here? It's very different from the rest of the world.
Yes and no. I live in Miami, and so it's very similar, right? But it's a different. Just being in the Middle East, being in another part of the world, seeing the culture, seeing the people, meeting the small amount of people that I've met, since I've been here, yourself and others, and just seeing what's happening here, it's just so inspiring. You know what I mean? It's like, God, please, for the love of God, get out of your hometown. Fucking leave. Your hometown is a set of handcuffs that you're wearing that's holding you back. I have never met anyone that has made it to a level that they want to reach staying in their hometown. And so coming to Dubai is the exact opposite of that, right? Living in Miami is the exact opposite of that. Putting yourself in these environments where, like, dude, I've made a lot of money. Like, I have a significant balance sheet. I feel fucking poor here. You know what I mean?
Imagine
like,
how I feel.
You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at this and you're like, damn, And so it's just inspiring. It really is. It's creative. And then I think that just traveling in general, getting out of your day-to-day routine, even if you live in Dubai, leaving Dubai because you live here, becomes normalized, or you live in Miami, leaving Miami and coming to Dubai, for something in that process happens for me where I've always had my best ideas, my best aha moments, my best light bulbs, because I'm able to break out and look back with a new perspective. And so certainly some of that's happening for me. I'm like, and one thing that happens to me in every trip that I've ever taken, I get to about the halfway point, and I've had so many of those aha moments, and I'm like, oh, when I get back, I'm doing this, and when I get back, I'm doing that, and when I get back, I'm doing this other thing. That halfway through, I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm ready to get back and kick ass. And so I'm about halfway through my trip now. Finally got adjusted to the time zone change. That kicked my ass. But fully inspired to go back and tackle 2024 and execute. And so I think that there's just something special and magical that happens in all of that.
I don't know if you find the same, but I find a lot of time on the plane, I have some always creative thoughts because I've got nothing to do. And I try not to connect to the internet, so I can it's like free space to think and just let your mind wander. You look out the window, looking over the world. It's like 100%. Wild in terms of where your brain starts going.
Yeah, it seems the delusion, the broken belief system that I've had for a long time that I struggled with, and I still struggle with, is that I don't have time for these trips. And the truth is, like, I don't have time to not take these trips. They always provide me so much inspiration, so much creativity, so many great ideas, so many new connections, new friends that, like, I knew that spending the money to come to Dubai was going to pay a multiple on return, a return on investment. And I can already tell you that's true.
100%. One of the things I wanted to delve into, which I forgot to ask, was in terms of you've worked with a lot of mentors, and that's one of the things you said, like, after learning from your father, you then found mentors to teach you. What does your process look like in terms of finding and sourcing mentors? Because I found, like, the higher I go up the business ladder, like, the more difficult person
becomes a more and more
it's like there's less people have the skills that I'm trying to find, right?
Yep. Honestly, God's been good to me with that, where by getting in the room and doing everything that I just talked about, it's led me to a path where I've met people where I've just intuitively known I need to learn from that guy. And then I've figured out how to do it. A lot of my mentors don't even have Facebook or Instagram. A lot of my mentors are in their 50s and 60s, well-established, have proven track results, and aren't on social media. And that's honestly probably where most of them, like the most valuable ones that I have, are there. Outside of that, I learned something from anyone, right? Like, I certainly talk about having billionaire mentors and 9-figure mentors, but that's a certain narrow path, right? Like, back to like the humility and always being a student of the game. Like, I'll just get around. I'll learn from you. Like, we spend enough time together. I'm like, Charlie, what's this? What's that? What's this? What's that? Like, you'll have a hard time getting information out of me because I'm going to be so busy asking you questions and so bored with trying to answer yours, you know? And so just learning from everyone at all times. But you have to meet those people. You have to interact with them. And so getting on the plane, going to the event, masterminds and events are huge, right? Like, just going to paid events and getting in those rooms, the expensive ones especially. Like, you go to a mastermind that costs 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, whatever it is. You're with other people that wrote that check too. That's one of the reasons, right? Like, I have events. My low ticket event right now is $1,000. You can come for 6 hours, 10 to 4, and I will give you a master class on, we do one for business, I do one for real estate, and I do one for social media. Those are the 3 areas I make a lot of money in. And so I consider myself an expert in those 3 verticals of business, and so I teach those events. I also have a mastermind that costs $15,000. I will tell you, they are 2 entirely different crowds. And so people want to cheap out and come to the $1,000 crowd. I'm like, that's cool. Like, you're going to get the same information, kind of, but you're going to be in the room with a bunch of other $1,000 people. You come to the $15,000 event, the room is powerful. It really is.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I think that's where a lot of people don't understand the power of being in a network of people who are crushing it, because you just see how other people like behave. And also, I think if you see someone in the flesh who's like, that guy's killing it, he's just a normal person, then I can fucking do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it demystifies. It pulls the cloak down, and they're like, oh, like, this is totally achievable. That's just a dude. Yeah.
You mentioned social media as one of your big businesses. What do you think is your plan with that at 2024, and how are you utilizing that?
Continuing to grow my brand, continuing in content creation and distribution across all channels. Attention is the commodity, and then there's a lot of different, and so continuing to build an attention, more and more eyeballs, right? That's a strategy every day. I love what Gary Vaynerchuk says, day trading attention, right? I love that, and so continuing to day trade attention, but then also having the different ways that we monetize it, and that's through coaching, information, and events. And so just building and expanding upon that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today, Eric.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where's the best place for people to find out more about you?
Instagram. That's my native platform. I'm everywhere, but you want to find me, Instagram is the best place. It's just at Eric Spofford. Easy.
Awesome. We'll drop the link below. For anyone who's looking to blow up their fitness business as well, we have a huge mastermind event. We talked about the importance of masterminds here in Dubai, February 9th and 10th on the Palm. So we'll put a link below for that for you guys to sign up. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you subscribe, share it with a friend, and we'll see you next episode soon.